I want to thank everyone for joining me in this historic dedication today. Today, at long last, veterans across Western New York will have a fitting resting place and eternal place in honor right here in the very community which dedicates their lives. The resting place of honor belongs here in Western New York, and now it is here. Dedicating this hallowed ground today answers the calls of veterans who organized over a decade ago for a national cemetery. I was proud to take up their call and work alongside them to realize this day. Now, a grieving family will not be left to travel over 200 miles from their home in Western New York, in the Rochester area, to bury their loved ones. Now the veterans of Western New York and the Rochester Finger Lakes area who have done so much for us and our nation will have a proper burial at a national cemetery close to their home, their family, and their thankful community. But like our veterans when they serve our country, no obstacle stands in the way. They do their job. And together, the veterans organizations, the Veterans Administration, and myself have pushed and pushed and pushed, and we are here now at this wonderful, wonderful day. I want to thank Dr. Patrick Welch, who nearly 16 years ago, as the then director of the Erie County Veterans Service Agency, led the charge to build a National Veterans Cemetery in Western New York. Some Western New York families have cared so much about this that they are holding on to their loved ones' remains for years, waiting for the day they can finally be buried in a national cemetery close to home. That day has come.
Our region deserves this cemetery. Our veterans deserve this cemetery. The family members of our veterans deserve to mourn, pray, and visit their loved ones in our region, not over 100 miles away. The veterans and their families earn this right. Our Western New York region, on a per capita basis, has far more veterans than so many other areas in our state and in our nation. Again, you earn this, and you deserve this, and we thank you for your service to your country and your service to this community for making this cemetery this day possible. Just as President Lincoln said so many years ago, it is likely few will remember what is said here today, but we must never forget what our veterans and our military have done and do every day to preserve our freedoms.
They deserve the dignity of a good home and mental health services if they need it, and make sure they've got education, and make sure they have a job. And I'll never forget, as a member of the House Armed Services Committee in Congress, going over to Afghanistan and gathering a number of individuals in Kandahar, members of our active duty military, and asking them what their greatest fears were. And I assumed the answer would be, well, we got the Taliban right out here, and we're worried about this, we just lost someone yesterday. Their biggest fear was coming back to America and not having a job and ending up homeless. Can you imagine that that's what's on the minds of our military when they're serving us, willing to shed their lives for us? So we owe them. We owe them so much, and I've dedicated myself to their well-being when they return. But this is an opportunity to say thank you, to ensure that they have a dignified final resting place where people will come and reflect on them, think about them, think about their lives, what they contributed, their willingness to sacrifice their life.
I'm honored to be here with Senator Schumer. I've had the privilege of knowing him since he was in the House when I worked for Senator Lott, and Lieutenant Governor, and to Congressman Jacobs. I cannot begin to thank you for what you have done here. I'm going to get off the script for a minute and go back to something that the Lieutenant Governor said. I too am a child of Vietnam. My father was grievously wounded in the invasion of Cambodia. He was so badly wounded that spent a year in Triple Army Hospital recovering from his wounds, and another 3 years before the Chief of Staff of the Army reversed the ruling of the medical board and allowed him to return to active service with the 82nd Airborne Division. And what the Lieutenant Governor said brings back memories of that time and why this is so important. My father is senior officer in the most decorated of all combat units in the Armed Forces of the United States, the All-American Group, was not allowed to wear his uniform off post. Such were the times. Gatherings like this, the entreaties of our veteran service organization, fell on deaf ears because America did not want to be reminded of that conflict in Southeast Asia. America has turned that corner, and we've all made a commitment to never return to those times. Look at what's happening here in Western New York. You are dedicating a facility to the sons and daughters of this part of the state who have served since the Revolution. 9 holders of the Medal of Honor came from the 3 counties surrounding us. People like recently David Batavia in Iraq. Thank you to my staff and the staff of the Western New York National Cemetery for bringing this together so that we could join today and celebrate those who have worn the cloth of our nation. I'm going to say a few things today, but I think the next thing I'm going to say, and the next direction and order that I am going to give, is probably the most important and what everybody has been waiting to hear. We have Clyde Marsh, our Executive Director of our North Atlantic District, here with us. He is responsible for all of our cemeteries in the North Atlantic region. Executive Director Marsh, as of today, you are authorized and directed to commence interments at the Western New York National Cemetery no later than December 18th, 2020. That will come to you in written form later today. The building back there was mentioned by the Lieutenant Governor earlier. I will tell you that that building is not supposed to even be there. It wasn't scheduled to be constructed until 2022, and it will be completed this next year, about a year ahead of time, maybe a little more than that. This cemetery is well ahead of schedule, given the start of construction. Here in rural America, this is the fabric of our country. This is where the largest number of our service men and women come from in this nation. They defend us, and they take care of us. And yes, Senator, as you said, they deserve this honor because they have earned it, and they will forever be honored here. In the National Cemetery Administration, we have one mission and we have one vision. And as the Secretary knows well, that is to ensure that no veteran ever dies. The very foundation of that comes from what I learned as a child, an old Jewish proverb. That proverb tells us that we all die 2 deaths. We die the first time when breath leaves us, but we only truly die sometime in the future when no one speaks our name or tells our story. On this hallowed ground, the stories and the deeds of our veterans from the Western New York area will be told. Their names will be spoken, and they will never be forgotten.
Hundreds of people, thousands of hours of dedicated work to get to this point, and this is a tribute to all of those people who have served this country, and we're all very, very excited to have this, and appreciate the VA and the Secretary's work, and particularly Senator Schumer. He was the one who took this and ran with it, and very appreciative to him. Veterans issues transcend politics. Our dog tags didn't carry an R or a D. We carried Americans. And this is all about honoring those who have served this country. We've got over 1.4 million veterans buried in cemeteries all over the world, and now we will have some of them buried in our own community.